Runway Latinx started with an idea. Every big vision that you see, Microsoft or Apple or Runway Latinx or this podcast started with one idea. So you start with an idea, and then through physics, you put it into motion and put it into the world. As somebody who's made 7 independent films, never had any big Hollywood studio backings, and they all ended up on national television. Nobody's going to do it for you, and you have to be the spark that's put in those projects.
You're watching Chic Innovator. Stay tuned for fascinating topics, fascinating people that have style and are innovative. So go ahead, welcome. I'm so glad you're here, and please introduce yourself and tell us what you would like people to know you as.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me, Arabel. It is wonderful to see you. I've been following your story for a long time, so it's nice to finally connect. I'm Brian Schodorf, known on Instagram and TikTok and all those places as Filmmaker Brian. Dead giveaway, I'm a filmmaker. Been a filmmaker since... I came out of the womb since I was a baby. No, almost true. I've been doing films and movies since about 12.
Since 12? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you started young.
Yeah, I was lucky to have found something that, and realized it when I was young, that this is something that I love to do, and it's something I'm good at.
How did that show up for you, though, especially at such a young age?
A couple ways. One, I did have like a knack for it. We had a VHS camera, one of the big ones that you put the VHS tape in. Most of the younger people aren't going to have ever seen one of these, except maybe literally in a museum at this point. But it's a big camera.
Or in some of the movies, right?
In some of the movies, yeah. The handy cam, basically.
Yeah.
We had one of those. We'd make movies and whatnot. And, I will proudly say that my uncle... is a filmmaker, a documentarian, newsman. His name's Bill Curtis. You may know the name. He says
Bill Curtis, big name here in Chicago, and frankly all over. Everybody has known that name.
Yeah.
So it's in your DNA.
It is. He says, "Hello, I'm Bill Curtis."
Yes.
And I don't have quite the pipes, but I do have some of the vision that he has. And so I kind of grew up watching him.
Okay.
And he's just an inspiring guy. And plus my parents, were very inspiring. My mom was in politics. My dad was a federal prosecutor. So, it's nice to have that, privilege to see your parents doing things. And regardless of, maybe the path you're going, you kind of always have that instilled in you, like, okay, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to do these things. And it's kind of, I would say, innate. So, when we talk about 2-parent households and good role models and all those things, it really is a privilege. So happy to
innate,
build up.
Inspired though too, I think, right, from your family, and then that's great, because I don't know about you, but I know our family, which is one of the things that I'm so grateful for. My dad always pushed for us to discuss everything we wanted to at the dining room table. And it was really great, because that fired you up and then made you, at least me, very curious about life. And, and which is kind of why I'm doing the podcast now. It made me curious, and also wanting to share with other people things that I know, people that I've met, so that they could get inspired too. So it is a great privilege. And,
it is.
And congratulations on that, because not everybody has that. But I've got to tell you that you being here is so important as well, because you will inspire somebody. We have... I think I told you, not only here in Chicago, people that watch us, but we have different age groups. And we have a lot of young people because of the fashion things that I do with Runway Latinx. We have a lot of young people that follow us. And so I think it's really great. Tell me, though, how do you see this industry here in Chicago, the industry that you're, as a filmmaker, really, not only in entertainment, but also you're picking out these wonderful stories and elaborating on them and winning all these awards, because you're you've won all these awards. But how do you see the industry, and would you recommend somebody, out there who's interested in this industry to go into it?
Yeah, Chicago is a place rich in history. It's something I'm very interested in. And it's rich in diversity, and it's just a very vibrant place, as you know. So I would say when you get up in the morning and you're a storyteller, because this is the best time to be a storyteller, because you have these phones. I was going to call it a telephone. I don't think people call it telephone anymore. You have these devices in your pocket that can literally. A few years ago, they came out with the term citizen journalism. We're all, relatively speaking, citizen journalists now, because you have this device in your phone that you can tell stories, and not only just shoot it, edit it, but now you can distribute it and broadcast it to the world. So I would tell people, whether you are, identify as a creative, as a filmmaker, or just somebody who maybe feel like you have a knack for it, or want to further your career and actually take the next steps to making content, making money, is just do it. There's, as long as it's appropriate content and it's not offensive, or not a whole lot of drawbacks with putting out creative ideas into the world. Runway Latinx started with an idea. Every big vision that you see, Microsoft or Apple or Runway Latinx or this podcast, started with one idea. So you start with an idea, and then through physics you put it into motion and put it into the world. So if you have an idea, push it, because I will say this, as somebody who's made 7 independent films, never had any big Hollywood studio backings, and they all ended up on national television. Nobody's going to do it for you, and you have to be the spark that's putting those projects out.
I think if you're waiting for the call, you're going to be waiting.
I was saying this the other day. Yes.
Make it happen.
Make it happen.
Yes.
And I made a video the other day. I didn't post it, but I had met some marketing directors, and I have a video production company, so we do all kinds of videos for companies, and we work with marketing departments and advertising agencies. And I got some cards from some marketing directors, and I emailed them, and they didn't email me back. And I just kind of made a video saying that even for somebody who's established and been around the block and has won awards and things like that, even I get, as they say, ghosted. So to your point, people are not breaking down the door to help you. And not saying,
because there's so much out there,
and they're busy too.
Yes,
they have their own problems.
Are busy, right?
And also, you only have so much ability to bring new people on and work with new ideas and things like that. You have your own people, your own projects. So you, as a producer, as a creative, as a content maker, you have to be so good, and you have to have something that people need and they want. So you have to be creative, and you have to also, like you said, put in the work, be diligent, and also be persistent. Right, all that stuff. Persistence, because even celebrities out there, they get up and they get doors slammed in their face every day. People think that oh, you've made it to a certain level, you're good, you've made it. No, you get the same voice in the back of your head, that when you don't get what you want, essentially, that everybody else does.
Yeah, and you got to rev yourself up, shake yourself off, and get yourself going.
5 minutes. Yes. That's what I tell my fiance. I say, all right, this didn't go the way we like. You didn't get that commercial, or you didn't get that part. Take 10 minutes and go sulk and come back, and then get over it. Move on, because if that door didn't open, the next one will. And I will say, this is something interesting that I think about sometimes, is sometimes you don't even know what you really want, because the things that you think you really want,
100%.
Once you don't get it and you get something else, and you're like, oh damn, that's what I really wanted. So you can't get too wrapped up into the no's of day to day, right?
Yeah, I firmly believe, I have strong faith in universe and God or whatever, because a lot of times if you try to define what you think, sometimes our imagination isn't big enough. and what's around the corner, that failure may lead you to something so much bigger that we couldn't even conceive it,
right.
Which is wonderful, right? I love that opportunity, that sometimes a failure will bring.
And one thing just on that is try to embed some type of humanitarian, not that we all have, not you have to focus just on that, but hope that something in your passion affects the greater good. Whatever that may be, because that's going to get you further, because you're also putting that positive energy out there. So good attitude, positive energy, help other people, and then follow your passion, and then see what happens.
Yeah, right? I love it. So tell us a little bit, because there are so many projects out there that you could be doing. What is it? Maybe give us 3 things that you use to kind of choose what project you're gonna. Is it gut instinct? Is it what does the storyline might tell? I don't know. You share with us.
Yeah, I mean, look, these days, especially with the way the whole political world is shaped, projects that you might have been able to do 4, 8, 10 years ago are now. There's going to be a lot of pushback on those. You look at Netflix and not just politically, but from the world of television distribution. So look at Netflix, for example. What are they picking up? They're picking up crime. They're picking up...
I do like those crime stories.
They're good. They're good. But if you go disappearing girl off the cruise boat or, or disasters and things like that, there's a show called Trainwreck, a Netflix news show. But what you won't see is a whole lot of independent films out there anymore. So we may have to start shifting away from that model, because now we have our own distribution methods. Back to what I was talking at the beginning, you have your own channel essentially with YouTube and Instagram, and I really think that's where we have to shift. I know we all want to get our movie on network television and Netflix or Hulu or Paramount Plus, but I'm sorry, they're not working with us anymore.
Well, and the thing is, we looked at the data when we were looking at how to work with Chic Innovator, and people are not getting their news in the normal way. They used to go to TV, right, to get their news, and so now they're getting a lot of their information, and it's very young and older are going to YouTube. They're going even to Spotify. TikTok. That's where a lot of the news, and so you're right. You have a lot of new platforms. They've been around for a while, but you've got a lot of platforms and a lot of opportunities. But how do you choose the story?
I'll tell you a story I'm going to do, and I'm going to announce it here first.
Okay, all right.
But I will say, before I do that, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, my uncle is Bill Curtis, and he was an anchor man here in Chicago, and he had that great voice, but he was also a trusted news source. So when people watch CBS or ABC or NBC, they came into the living room every night and they trusted the information they were getting. That's changed for whatever reasons. But a lot of people are getting their news off of TikTok. You scroll, and there's good things to that. And there's also, some bad things that have other consequences with death scrolling all day long. You're a little bit desensitized. But when you're looking for a story, we have to find something that reaches across the screen, or at this point, across the phone, that can touch the audience in different ways. So a story that I'm going to be taking on next year is called No Parking. And it's a story that...
No parking.
No parking.
Okay.
Big, in red letters, no parking. And it's a story that's important to me, because as you go around the city and look at, the average household can't afford a $60 ticket that doubles to $120 in 2 weeks, or the red light tickets.
And businesses can't afford it. I mean, I have a business that, sometimes I have to go downtown, up north, blah, 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 and we spend so much money on parking just to get to meetings.
Just to park in a garage, to park on the street.
Yes.
And the story behind that is, unfortunately, there was a mayor in Chicago who did a backdoor deal at the 11th, 25th hour and pushed this through to balance his budget as he was going out the door. At the same time, he sold the city out. So people know now more, but when you pay that meter, when you go and pay, a lot of times the Skyway, these things have been sold off. So that's a private hedge fund in Abu Dhabi that's actually receiving the income from our pockets. Those green signs.
What we originally knew about that deal and what it is now, night and day. So you're right, night and day.
And we have 55 more years of it. Mm-hmm. And it is one of the things in Chicago that is by definition breaking the back of the working class family. And you have people, as we've seen this shift in politics, like they don't want that type of representation anymore. Somebody who's going to charge them every single block, and it's coming right out of people's pockets, and they can't afford it. So either you pay the meter or you get the tickets, and if you get the tickets, then you get the boot. They take away your car. And
well, and it keeps families isolated. Yeah. Not everybody can take the CTA, right? And don't complain about the CTA. I was acting chairman of the CTA during COVID, and I did it for 7 years. So I was on the board. It's a great system. We're number 2 in the country, but not everybody can take it. Right. And we've got people with disabilities. We've got other things. And so sometimes they have to be driven, and families then can't leave because they can't afford it. They can't afford it, so they can't leave, and it isolates communities more. So you're going to shine a light on this.
Shine a light on that. And unfortunately, there's not a whole lot other than shining a light on it that we can do. Brandon Johnson, Lori Lightfoot, they tried to go back and revisit this topic with LAZ parking and the people who own this contract. But anyway, so
that's your next project.
Yeah, let's keep it going on that because I think it's important.
So I think it sounds like truth-telling and revelation is really important to you.
I'd recommend people go take a look at Chicago at the Crossroad. It's a 5-time Chicago Emmy Award-winning documentary that takes a look at public housing, racist, discriminatory housing policy.
I want to ask you about that because the lens that you looked at Chicago through that project, is there another city that you would think about doing something like that with? Because that was amazing. You've got all these awards mentioned.
Thank you.
Incredible job.
Philadelphia, has a lot of parallels to Chicago, I think. If you look, Philadelphia is going through a lot. There's a huge drug epidemic, and go look at TikTok at some of the areas where people, are slouched over, passed down, and kind of have lost a meaning for life in a lot of ways. I hate to say zombies, but that's what it makes you think of. Not saying that Chicago as a whole has that reputation, but Philadelphia is a city that has in its own ways a lot of parallels and a lot of difficulties that we see in our urban areas. And there's multiple reasons for that deindustrialization, as we saw in Chicago at the Crossroad from the 1940s and 50s and 60s. This global outlook, this business model of taking manufacturing jobs out of the cities and first shipping them to southern states with no unions, and then shipping them further to Mexico and these other countries where you can receive cheap labor. So this whole cycle started long before the person got in the White House and is doing his own reciprocal actions, whatever.
Well, and there'll be, there'll be a lot more people, but I think I like that because Philadelphia, and actually I have a friend that's very high up in Pennsylvania, and so he's probably going to be watching this. So this is a good thing. I'm just going to tell you, he's top 2 or 3.
Okay.
There,
and the parking situation in Pennsylvania almost identical.
Oh, really?
Yes, almost identical.
Okay.
They sold their people down the river too, so I may go there and do some work.
So, you talked about some of the recommendations that you make to young people, but what is one thing that keeps motivating you on a daily basis? To keep telling the truth, to getting it out there, to doing the wonderful stories that you do. What's the one big thing that motivates you?
Yeah, I think something that motivates me is that the job isn't done. We are evolving as as a population, as a society, with our technology. But the one thing that remains the same is the stories still need to be told. Good storytelling is always going to be an important part of society. And right now, I'll tell you what is motivating me is this shift to a authoritarian type of autocratic stance of erasing history, taking down history of Native Americans, African Americans, their involvement in the military, taking down, Rosa Parks,
even honestly, even Latino. And that's
history,
why we try really hard to hold on to a lot of what we do, and we're actually putting a lot of data and everything together, because you can make the story completely different and erase history, and that doesn't help anybody.
And so that's what we're seeing right now in this administration is if you can convince the people that it never happened, well, then it never did, because it's only in the minds, and as we get older and time passes, those people leave us, and all we have is the history books.
But then it's propping them to the possibility that could happen again.
Oh, absolutely.
And in a much worse way.
And right? I'll just say this is those who want to erase history are those who are the most likely who want to repeat it. So
I love that. Yes. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
This was good.
Yeah.